When I showed up to school, we had to check in, see if anybody needed anything. And generally, we had to be there no matter what. They could call you and say, hey, we need you in the afternoon. So I would go down and volunteer in the student oral surgery clinic. That was sort of my passion because it was a good way, it was a fun way to go in, get something done, be able to practice some dentistry, learn a new skill, learn something different, and do it sort of on the fly. You didn't have to have this big sort of big to-do to get that person there. You didn't have to do all the boring work of sorts. And so I found myself going there every single week. And as a side note, I can remember the first tooth I took out. When I try to describe to people what it's like, the best way I can say is that the feeling of taking a tooth out for me is a little bit electric. And I know that that may sound gory, but here's what it's like for me. Imagine yourself taking an Oreo. We've all done this. Taking an Oreo and turning it, right? You know that separation, that feel of it slipping and being done, right? Yeah. That feel is what it feels like to take a tooth out. Wow. And for me, it was like an Oreo on steroids as well, right? Like not everybody gets that same satisfaction as I do, but that's where it came from. And so I was sort of kind of, we'll call it chasing this little high, right? Mm-hmm. And I went there every single day. I ended up winning the Student Oral Surgery Award for taking out teeth. I was there on the weekends, or not on the weekends. I was there on our breaks. Like say we had a 2-week break, I might go home for 3 or 4 days, but then I'd come back and volunteer in the student clinic. It was sort of addictive. Now I've kind of limited my options in the future to periodontics or oral surgery, okay? Oral surgery, if you want to take, there's 2 routes you can go. There's a 4-year path and a 6-year path. The 4-year path, you sort of do a lot of medicine, but a lot of it is also dentistry. So when you're doing this dentistry, you learn, you don't get an additional degree yet, or I don't believe you get another degree. You're an oral surgeon, that's fine. The 6-year degree, for 3 years, you go all the way back to start. You basically got, it's in Monopoly when you go to jail, right? You go right back to the bookwork and going in with the students in medicine. And for me, that always seemed a little bit too much outside of the realm of dentistry, right? Remember, I'm just chasing the high of the Oreo separating. And that seemed a little bit too far away from it. Also, I didn't really have the interest. Nothing piqued my interest about trauma cases and cutting into jaws like on the big scale. Nothing of that seemed great to me. When I would go through rotations and things in oral surgery, the patients being fully under general sedation and working on them in that environment just didn't do anything for me. It's amazing that we can do that. It's amazing that that can be done. It's definitely necessary for a ton of cases and tumors, resection, all of those things. But that didn't really tickle my fancy. So as I'm trying to decide, I had a good friend, one of my best friends in dental school. His father was a periodontist. I already mentioned his name, Alan Fettner. But Michael Fettner was my classmate. And he said, I think you should go check out my dad. I think you should check out periodontics. So my interest was piqued after the day of working with them. And then we were coming up on a 2-week break. And Michael said, well, since you're interested, my brother and I are going to go on a tour. And we're going to go kind of up the eastern seaboard and just take our time, and we're going to go tour and visit a bunch of different perio residencies. And so we're going to go to South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland, which is where I kind of ended up. That's how I kind of ended up at Virginia. So those 4 places that I went to, we kind of took, I forget what it was, 10 days, 14 days, 7 days. It was a long time. It was more than, I think it was about 10 days. We'd go, spend a couple days in the city, spend a couple days in the residency, move on to the next one, stop a couple different places. It was a really fun time. And in that exposure, I got exposed to a lot of different residents and a lot of different attitudes, and most of them were all positive. Now, to finally complete the home run, to finally complete it all the way around, when we got back, I started to say, okay, instead of spending the time just figuring stuff out on my own, taking out single teeth, I'm going to go spend some time in the peri residency, kind of learning from the residents. The first day I did that, I met a guy. His name is Matthew Waite. He has also a very interesting story. He was displaced from, I think it was Katrina. Katrina went through New Orleans, right? Mm-hmm. So he was displaced from Katrina when it hit. He was displaced from the residency there, and his co-residents and him got essentially redistributed around the country into different programs so that they could finish on time rather than just have to wait while their clinic was being rebuilt, etc. So he was sort of a transplant from, I believe it was LSU. But anyway, I met him, and the first time I met him, I think he spent 2 to 3 hours explaining all the different nuances of what to look for in an implant. What does a thread look like? Why does an implant work? And I probably should have known, but I didn't know what an implant was until I started looking into periodontics, honestly. I was heavily into my third year, had no idea what a dental implant was. And so to have that guy kind of take me under my wing and teach me all these like little cool, interesting, engineering, fascinating little tips and tricks about how to look at an implant and such, I definitely still take that into my work today.